So welcome everyone. Welcome to this third module. Some people are still connecting. Admit the people along the way. I hope you're doing well, all of you. And welcome to this module 3. So this is here the final session of this online training. Yes. So this is the third and last module of this online training about diversity and inclusion. So we had module 1 2 weeks ago, module 2 last week, and here we are to the last module of this part of diversity inclusion. There's another training within the scope of the iBOX project about digital and blended work methods that are coming after this one in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us for the last module. I hope you had a good week over the past, the past few days went well for you. What I propose you for the last module, as mentioned last week, the idea here would be to be more on the interactive session and exchange sessions to also have your experience, insights, perspectives. And so the proposition would be that we would have more time in smaller groups to have exchanges between you on some particular situations, to work on cases, to know each other better as well, because we are different countries represented here and different types of organizations. So it's always interesting to have this moment of exchange and sharing so that we can also inspire from one another and have your own feedback and expertise on what on the thematics of diversity and inclusion. Before we start, is there any spontaneous comment, feedback, remark? They're all welcome in any case. A short reminder before we the beginning of this session. So the training, the online training is being recorded for the plenary part. At least the breakout room session won't be recorded. And I will have the help of Noya and Cecile and Aisha to manage the technical part of this online training and the chat as well. Feel free to post anything in the chat, questions, remark, anything. I might not be able to see it, but my colleagues here will, and thanks to them. And as a reminder, please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. You can, of course, take the floor at any time, and by raising your hand, for instance. And if you're able to, you can have your camera on. It's always nice to see faces, but if not possible, it's no big deal. All right, what I propose you for this, I'm sharing my screen right now. For this third module is to, well, over the past 2 weeks, we went into the thematics of diversity, discrimination, stereotypes, prejudices, and we talked about the concept of inclusion, which was also fueled by your contributions, feedback, and experiences in link with this topic. My proposition for today would be that we'll make a small recap of last week's sessions, of course, so that we get back in mind what we talked about, and for those maybe who are not there as well, might be useful. I will propose you to work on study cases. I will tell more about that a bit later on. To have your reflection, to work with you and to have a reflection with you on your own practices by using situation analysis based on situations that you can share. So in the last module, I asked you to think about one situation in which inclusion was challenged, in which inclusion was an issue and something that raised the questioning for you, something that you think maybe we could have done it differently. Maybe we can. I could have had other methods at that point. So the idea would be that you use your own experience, professional experience, for instance, and you propose a situation with a place, a person, a time, so something that very concrete, and that you share the situation, and at the end you share your questioning about the situation, and we would try to work in small groups on one situation. And some word about inclusion and the relationship to alterity, meaning that what can we do concretely when we work with others to foster inclusion? What could be the concrete hints and useful things that we have to consider when thinking of more inclusion? So this would be my proposition for today's module. We would have a short break at 1 p.m., 10 minutes, and we will be back afterwards in plenary. Welcome back, and welcome to the people who join us during those breakout sessions. I propose you a small recap of last week's session. So what did we talk about last week? For those who were there, also for those who weren't there, in module 1, so 2 weeks ago, we talked about diversity as well as discrimination and the underlying mechanisms, notably the notions of stereotypes, prejudices, the concepts of intersectionality. Sorry. Last week in the module 2, we continued on this thematic of discrimination by highlighting the existing legal basis, which mean the major texts, the laws, the international conventions that establish people's fundamental rights, like, for instance, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, or more recently in the history, the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union in 2000. We also name examples of legal cases of discrimination that were brought to the European Court of Human Rights and that denounced and demanded justice against a situation of discrimination that was experienced. So, for instance, we talked about the case of the segregation of Roma children by the school system in Czech Republic. So to illustrate how those international texts can be applied in certain situations. We mention also the additional strategies and policies that were adopted by the European Union, by the European Commissions, with the objective to strengthen Europe's commitment to equality. For example, strategies regarding gender, disability, anti-racism, Roma people, etc. So additional texts built on the core and fundamental laws about human rights, and that also adapting to the evolution of societies and the current problematics of society. We tackle the concept of inclusion and its signification. So inclusion is basically shaping an environment where everyone may feel welcome, and with the idea to ensure an equal access to resources and opportunities, and to foster a sense of belonging. So in other words, inclusion would be about removing any barrier to participation, to put the threshold as low as possible to allow full engagement and contribution of all participants. And we started this part about inclusion by opening the floor and to give you also the opportunity to share your own definition of inclusion, to share what inclusion means to you and what if it refers to from your perspective. So this is here the screenshot of the pad on which you wrote what inclusion means to you, basically what would be your definition. Then we explore the notion of inclusion in regards with other concepts that come along with inclusion. We talked about integration and the way it differs conceptually from inclusion, despite being sometimes used as a synonym, where, to sum it up, integration is about assimilating individuals into existing structures or a system where people have to fit in the mainstream society or group, whereas inclusion focuses more on transforming those same structures and systems and make them as open as possible to anyone. So inclusion accommodates diversity and aims at ensuring equitable participation for all and takes each individual into account as a whole. We completed the tour with the concepts of the notions of segregation and exclusion. When we talk about integration, we talk about in inclusion, we have to talk about the opposites, meaning segregation and exclusion, for instance. Segregating is creating separate spaces for those who differ from the norm, whereas excluding means casting aside people and not let them in, not allowing them to participate. Inclusion is intricately bound with the concept of equities. We talk about equity and equality and the nuance that exists between both. Equality means identical treatment for everyone, regardless individual needs or disadvantages or even privileges. And equity, by contrast, seeks fairness by considering the characteristics of one individual and is more about tailoring the access, the resources, the tools, the opportunities adequately. So with equity, this is not this is the structure that has to be adaptable and flexible and not the people, which amounts to say that equality versus equity amounts to saying sameness versus fairness, and understanding the differences between both can help identifying and responding to different situations that may be unfair and on which one can have a power of change. Sorry, a bit too quick. Well, when we talk about inclusion and the inclusion process, the notion of equity is, of course, one important aspect to have in mind. And we talk also about talking about inclusion. We talk about where does it come from? When or where does the term inclusion originate? So originally it comes from the 1970s and was a word that emerged with the defense of the rights of people with disabilities. And along its history, it was pushed forward, and notably in Europe, through different landmarks. And I named two of those landmarks: the Salamanca Declaration, 1944 in Spain, calling for a more inclusive educational system, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2008, that wishes to ensure the full and equal enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms by people with disability. So those official texts help societies shifting from a logic of integration to a concern of inclusion and adopting different perspectives towards diversity and the importance of creating environments suited for everyone. And finally, we had the presentation of a practice from Italy named Scuole Migranti, which is a network of schools across Italy in which volunteer teachers provide free courses to migrant people. And we had last week Claudio Tosi, who was there and who presented us this network, and so that we also could have an exchange with him and ask him direct questions about how it works and what is the purpose of this network and the public they're working with. So this was the recap of the last week's sessions. If you have any questions or remarks, feel free to take the floor, and otherwise, I propose you to continue. So, as mentioned, my proposition for you today would be that we have more interactive sessions and working sessions in smaller groups. And what I propose you now is to have a time to work on study cases. What is a study cases? I will give you a situation. You will have a few lines explaining a situation, and you will work in small groups to try to answer the question at the end of this situation. So as earlier, you will be splitted into breakout rooms from 3 to 4 people, maybe 4 people, ideally, if the number is right. And you will be given 1 cases. So we'll be using the first situation here. You'll be given 10 minutes to work together about this case and try to think of a possible answer to the question. And we will be back afterwards. In each breakout room, in each group, I would need 1 reporter that can be able at the end and plenary to give some elements and thoughts and reflections of his or her group. So what I propose you now is to work on the first situation. I'm reading it. So Mrs. Martin comes to register her son at the laser center. You provide her with explanations and give her the documents to fill out. Instead of taking them, she starts giving you instructions to do it for her. You insist that she takes them herself. She becomes agitated and leaves without taking the documents. How do you understand a reaction? So this is the case that you have to work on. We will be splitting the group in breakout rooms, and you will be back in 10 minutes in the plenary session. Thank you for your contribution. What I propose you now is to pull in plenary your thoughts and reflections about this case. So from each group, I would ask the reporter to gather the thoughts and reflection that you had together and give us your view or your perspective about this situation. Begins who wants. Sorry, I have the French expression in mind that doesn't work in English. So who wants to try first to give us feedback? For each group, so the reporter can give us the elements, but of course the rest of the group can also take the floor, complete and support.
So I can start. I'm from group 1. Is okay?
Yes, sure. Can you just remind who were the people of your group?
Okay, my name is Anabella Gracio. And I was with Laurent, and I don't recall the name of the other member of the group. Okay, I think he's no longer here. Okay, but the idea is we analyze situation 1, and we consider that there might be 2 reasons for the refusal. One, and probably the reason is that maybe these Madame Martin, Miss Martin, Martin, she cannot read or write, or and therefore she struggles in filling out the form or the documents, or she does not master the language and she has difficulties in doing it. So she refuses to fill in, and she leaves without even taking the documents because she cannot do it. And the alternative is she does not want, she feels entitled, and she thinks that the person should do it for her. We should do it for her. So depending on the situation, we would react differently, of course.
From the first situation, we very much agree with Annabella. Like perhaps this person cannot read or write or cannot understand the language, or even she cannot see the text because of any disability. And I think like we thought that what we could have done there, instead of telling like you have to do it yourself, is like, do you have any problem? Can we offer any assistance? So yes, as Rosandra said in our team, that this is really a lack and a problem of communication.
Okay, were you all agree on your analysis of the situation within your group?
Yes, it was like Hadil also with the added like perhaps the language was the barrier, so we had like this kind of yes, like what it could be Marie's problem that she could not fill in the form. Who wanted to think that it was because of a lack of skills, of capacity, not because she was not feeling like.
Thank you.
I want to add something, if possible, for our group. Thank you,
please.
Elena. There was a point like misunderstanding or miscommunication, misagreement in the communication. Maybe it affects the situation of this girl. Elena already mentioned the point that we discussed. So I want to add that there is no agreement point between the two parts.
Can you explain what you mean by no agreement point?
Okay, so the student or Mrs. Martin wanted to do something or understand that this is her role, this is her duty, but the other person thinks something else. Maybe she thinks that it would be she's obliged to do more for me, it's obligatory for her to assist me or to help me. So there is no a good understanding, or there is misunderstanding for the roles or the duties.
Perhaps I can add something about the first case. We we also guessed that, well, we also thought that maybe Miss Martin could be illiterate, and this is maybe shaming her, so this is why she won't give any explanation and just tell us how to fill in the model. But also we guessed that maybe she could have an impairment, like a visual impairment or another type of impairment. But anyway, what I think is that in this type of situation, whatever our response is, we should keep in mind that who is really affected is not us or the mother, but is the child. So if this person cannot complete the forms or refuses to do so, or if these forms, this registration is not completed, the one who misses out is the child, and we don't want that. So, I mean, I think helping out with completing the forms is a very little effort. So why not just do that? This is just my personal thought, though.
Thank you. Did all groups report? Or am I missing? No, okay. Thank you for your feedback. So in such a situation, from your experience and your perspective, why would you personally do? Did you already experience such a situation in your own professional path, in the organization you're working in? And how can you respond to that? So you already gave some elements and reflections, but do you have in your own backgrounds similar situations, and would you have more hints or tips or elements to face this? Yes, Hadi.
Thanks. I would like to put myself in her shoes and say, in my situation, it's my duty as an educationalist to do my my duties, which is like the professional things, but not forget that I'm a human being, that I must be like a helping hand for everyone. So I would do like, I will help her and discuss the points, and make the things clear for me and for the other part, and for the mom. I will help for the first time, and then for the second time I will try to explain the one by one and inform her that it's your role to do this and this and this, and it's my role to guide you, not to do it instead of you. So I will give the helping hand, I will explain the situation, and then I will put her in the assignment. So you are obliged to do this, you know how to do it, you know you already have the guidance from me before, and it's your role, it's your time to do it.
Thank you. Katarina?
Yes, so I would like to say that in this case, it would be important for administrators to get some sort of a training, sensitivity training, how to work better, how to support better people who might be struggling with filling in the forms, who might need some additional support when they are approaching administrative service, because I have witnessed throughout my life, when I was coming to different services like this, that the administrative workers are often not polite to people who are coming to them, often to be rude, which is not something that is a professional behavior. And it is something that could very easily happen when someone is needing some support in filling in the form, or just asking the information where they could go, that they are not met with help. And it's something that only makes things more complicated. So definitely also like training the administrators how to be more responsive would be something that I could add for this case.
Thank you, Katarina. Is there other thought or observation from your side about this situation, or insight? So if I sum up your feedback, your contribution about it, what the key points in this situation would be: communication, whatever the problem is with this person, might it be disability, or the fact that this person cannot easily read, or it's not his mother tongue, for instance, whatever the problem is, to try to communicate clearly and try to identify the problem and to try to get more support and to have people maybe get more tooled and trained to face some situations depending on the organization you're working in. Thank you about that. Is there other comments about this particular case?
Can I add something?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna say something very unpopular here, I think, but I don't think the reason for this person not filling in the forms really matters. I mean, it matters to us for the case studies, but in the concrete situation, in the real life situation, I don't think it would really matter. I don't think this person should be pushed in any way to expose the reason behind this. Because it could be, it could put them in a difficult situation. Not everybody wants to expose their problems with everybody, with just random administration stuff. And I think we should respect that. Again, I understand that we may we make hypotheses here because this is a training and it is part of the training. But in the real life situation, I don't think this should be a big concern. The big point is, the main point there would be, okay, this person, for whatever reason, refuses to fill in the form herself. So what can we do to fix this situation, like to make sure that this child is enrolled and he doesn't miss out? And yeah, I think the reason behind the mother's behavior is secondary, but I understand this may be an unpopular opinion.
Well, unpopular opinion are welcome for first, and it's a good point that you raise here. Of course, we are here in study cases. The examples that we take in such situations, training or and so on, might appear sometimes voluntarily exaggerated, but for a fact, there are administrations where are you not so warmly welcomed, and people in front of you are not necessarily willing to help, and this might happen. So we have here a situation where the person facing this this Mrs. Martin insists, because it's not a job to do it. They just want Mrs. Martin to take the document and that's it, and she's not willing to help any more than that. So this is this is a situation that we might face in the real life and that we might encounter. But you're right to point that out, because of course we are imagining an extreme situation, or a situation where we are facing, we're accumulating several difficulties, and how do we react? In the real life, for sure, people might be more willing to help and trying to understand the real difficulties, but those study cases, they are not made up, they are based on real experiences that that people have encountered in social centers, with administrations, when accompany migrant people, are in children facilities or leisure centers. So those are situations that might be real, and the idea here is it is an open question, right? There's no exact precise answer I will give you to this case. For sure, the idea is to launch the discussion and to have your analysis of the situations and to have your perspective, because you here from the different countries and organization you're from, it is this is the point here to have your eyes on this and to have your insight and experience, because that's the whole point for us to exchange here. Joanna raised her hand, and then Ruxandra.
Yes, well, I think that there are two dimensions when we are trying to make assumptions and to hypothesize why the woman didn't fill the form. We are being very stereotypical because we are categorizing the other, we are categorizing the woman, and by categorizing the woman, we are trying to squeeze her identity in very restricted boxes. So I don't think this exercise is about de-stereotyping, but it's about how we do stereotype the others, first of all. And second, I think also the example taken that we are talking about the woman and we are enforcing, again, gender stereotypes that mothers and women always have to accompany their kids in filling in these forms and not fathers or other non-binary parents. And thirdly, I think that we have to talk, myself, I'm a non-EU citizen and I have been dealing with different immigration offices throughout my life. And I have faced racism. I have seen how institutions are ableist, are racist and classist, and all type of oppressive isms. And it's not about the individual person working in this institution, but it's about the structure and the system we live in. So instead of tackling the individual dimension, I would go further tackling the systemic and structural inequalities and oppression that the neoliberal system unfortunately creates, because very often we talk about inclusion and very often we talk about diversity, but they are approached in a very tokenistic way, because we don't talk about how people, they don't have equal access to resources and power because of the systemic inequalities and because of the privilege that are built only for the few and not for the majority. So I would take it at more systemic level, this kind of discussion, rather than an individual one.
Thank you. It's true that working with such example or cases, we have very few information, just a few lines, and we have to make conclusions, we have to make assumptions, we have to think of what possibly could have, why is the reason of this situation, and we might fall into drawing quick conclusions, and then we would be in the stereotypes model that we talked about, for sure. And this is always might be the trick. I don't want to fall into this trap, but I have something that coming to my mind, but I don't want to fall in this trap because I lack information clearly, and it's difficult. And this was interesting to have all your contributions and all your the whole spectrum of reflections that you have and the whole possibilities that you raised. Ruxandra.
Just back quickly, because I know that we have to do the break also. So it's a really interesting discussion, and I hear all the points of view. It helps me reflect on my own way to do things in my professional work or my own situations. And for example, I'm in the whole reflection right now, but for example, in my organization, sometimes we organize exams for some certifications, and candidates, like whatever students, they have to register for an exam, for example. And sometimes we get calls from people who don't manage to fill in the form online, and to choose the right exam, for example. Let's summarize like that. And we ask questions about difficulties. Not the intention, of course, is not to have an etiquette, a label on each person, but to know if our procedure allow us to go further and assist them. Usually not, because they have to fill in, personal data to make a choice and, sign at the end. That's the exam I want to enroll. So we can't do it from 4 the persons that have difficulties. So we ask questions about difficulties in order to get them to have the right persons in our department or our structures or other structures to help them. So sometimes I think, yeah, it's a human communication between two persons, explaining why I can help or why I need help in order to find the best solution. So yeah, I found myself in some situation when the procedure doesn't allow me, let's say, to go more in assisting some, let's say, students, to take the same example. And but some details could help me, help assist the person to, yeah, to get help or yeah, solve this situation. So I think the communication is the key from the both parts. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add, to share my thoughts about it.
Alexandra, thank you a lot to everybody and your contributions and your reflection and thoughts about this. It is 1 p.m. It's past 8 minutes ago. I propose you a break, and after the break, I'm just quickly sharing my screen again. So what I propose you after the break is to, so we'll not doing that again, this 3D case. So this second 3D case, we'll leave it aside for now. What I propose you afterwards, after the break, is to go more into your something that is more linked to your realities and your work, your situations, your organization. And I propose you to have a moment where we can have a situation analysis. So it's quite similar to study cases, but the what I will ask you will be a bit different. And the idea of this study case, of this situation analysis, would be that we start from your own realities and your own experience directly. So the last module, I asked you to start to think about a possible situation you could share in which inclusion was challenged. So in which inclusion was clearly an issue, where there was a lack of inclusion or of a lack of recognition of diversity or lack of flexibility regarding the situations of the people. There is a lot of possible interpretations of this, and this situation has to be concrete. So it has to have a place, a time, a person. So you don't have to give those exact details, but it has to be something that you can refer to in terms of concrete experience. And it must raise a questioning for you. So you witnessed this particular situation, and it came to you some questions. It can be, how can have I done it differently? What can have we done to do it better? Or I don't know. The question is open, but it has to must have raised some questioning in your mind of the situation. What I propose you, we'll make the break and I give you the instructions afterwards. But we will do again some breakout sessions to have smaller groups, and I'll give more details after the break. It's 11. I propose you that we meet back at 1:21. So my proposition. Yes, thank you. It's already in the chat. Perfect. So my proposition, as mentioned, would be that you spot a situation that you would like to share. So there's, of course, nothing confidential in your situation, and in any case, there no judgment whatsoever. It's just something you would like to talk about, to illustrate some experience you had with inclusion and where inclusion was challenged. So what we will do is that we will split in breakout rooms, and you can, in those smaller groups, expose your situation, and you will have to choose one situation. So it will be 3 to 4 people in each small groups, and you have a small time to expose your situation. So time, place, a person, and a question you have. People can ask you some precisions, but give just the basic information. And among your little groups, you choose one situation you would like to work on. Meaning that with the group, you have to reflect on what do you think happened and what possible solution do you, those questions are in the chat, sorry. And what possible outcomes or solution would you identify here? So I put those 2 questions in the chat. So we won't be exposing you won't be sharing this situation in the plenary room. We will first split in breakout sessions, and you can share with your colleagues in this small group your situation. You choose one of the 3 to 4 situations exposed, and you work on that one. All right? Is it clear enough? Okay. So for that, we would give you 12 minutes, possibly 2 situations. Does one of the 2 groups want to share what was the situation, so giving the context, and what were your reflections regarding this situation?
Well, if you want, I can explain what we had in our small group. We were only 3, so everybody probably was in the other group. But Annabella explained her situation. One of her daughters did international studies in Netherlands, and in the graduation ceremony, absolutely everything was in Dutch. Nothing was in English, even that there was knowledge that there would be this family and this student who couldn't speak Dutch. And they were not told in advance that this would be the situation. They were not prepared, and quite shocking. And the explanation was that only it's one student. So we decided that it had to be in our language, because the rest of the people there would maybe have difficulties in English. And well, we thought a few things that could have happened. Maybe they could have informed them in advance, so they were prepared, because they arrived there with shocked to find out the situation. Or maybe the PowerPoint presentation could have been in English to facilitate those who don't speak Dutch to follow. Or maybe there could have been small words or a small summary at some point, thanking the people who have come from abroad, and to acknowledge that there are other type of people in the group, etc. There would be quite a lot of things that could have been organized in advance. As Annabella said, that you feel completely powerless, because they could not understand absolutely anything of what was happening, and it was really what it could have been a very happy moment in their family life. It became something really very sad. So this is more or less the situation. I don't know if Annabella, you want to add anything.
So of course you can mention the situation, but you're not obliged to tell who from whom comes the situation, or give details. But we have the context, we have the situation, we have the problematic, and we have your reflection. So that's the core elements that we would need here. Thank you in any case, Carme. And Annabella. So the problem here was the lack of linguistic inclusion by not taking into account the fact that among the students and the families of the students, people may not be able to understand Dutch, and there was no other possible organizations, if I understand correctly. Thank you. Among the others, is it something that you also experienced, this non-consideration for linguistic characteristics or lack of linguistic understanding in the welcoming or in the inclusion of someone or a group? And do you have reactions to this kind of situation?
So I could say that, so I have studied for 2 years at Free University of Brussels. That's mainly Dutch speaking, but they offer some programs in English. And it is something that didn't happen to me personally, but it has happened to some students that I know who were even student representatives of programs. And when they were in meetings with other representatives who were mostly Dutch speaking, that meetings were in Dutch, even if they knew there were people who do not speak the language. So it is a persisting issue that happens again and again. And it's something that certain professors are trying to raise awareness of how much important it is that if you want to have international students and included in relevant issues, that there should be a sensitivity to be open to English, because it was not the case that others didn't speak English. They do, but they just chose to feel more comfortable in their native language, which is not as respectful to other people who are not speaking the language or who are in the process of learning, but they're not there just yet to fully speak about complicated issues. So that is something that needs to be brought to attention, especially when it comes to university programs, to be more transparent.
Thank you. This is a problematic that we may witness also in France, for instance, on some administrations, notably the ones that to which migrant people have to go and ask some documents, and when they are asylum seekers, when they have to fill in some documents or to write basically the reasons of their asking, their path, etc. And all the documents are sometimes in French, and there's no linguistic support in some administration. So there's a lot of NGOs and associations working that domain, of course, that can support and accompany, but the administration, so it's a link between this linguistic non-consideration and the case that we talked on a bit earlier with this is Mrs. Martin. There is this issue that we give migrants document that just they cannot understand, and this document, this paper is determining for the rest of their path as in the country sometimes, and so it's a real issue and a problematic with some publics, of course. For the second group, what was your situation and what were you thinking?
So the case we focused on in the second group was actually brought in by myself. I have a brother with Down syndrome, and when he enrolled in secondary school, he was basically the principal of the school refused to let his assistant in the classroom. So basically, according to Italian law, if you have a severe disability, you are entitled to have both a teacher aide, which is a well, a teacher that assists you, but it's a teacher, and an assistant who is more, they're always there with you, and they are supposed to help you with a bit of a broader set of tasks. Yeah, the principal did not accept this person because they, well, basically he claimed that it would pose a threat to the privacy of other students, which, forgive me, but is nonsense. I mean, if the law allows disabled people to have this support, you cannot just refuse it. So my mom went to talk to him, but there was no way to change his mind. And even when she went to talk about this with the social services, who were also involved, and they were supposed to support her and support my brother, they basically didn't do anything. They didn't help her in any way. They didn't even go with her to the meeting with the principal. Basically the way this thing ended was that my mom was advised to basically sort of threaten the school that they would report it, so the school would have a lot of, I don't really know how to say this like in English, but basically the school would have a lot of deep checks and stuff. So it is not something you want to happen as an administrator. So after she threatened that she would do this, they basically, like the principal completely changed his mind, and he was like, okay, you can have the assistant, it's fine. But the problem that I see with this is not really with the principal. I mean, yes, there is a big problem with the principal. But the bigger problem that I see is with the social services, because they were completely absent. Their job was to assist and support my mom and my brother, and they did not do that. So the problem that I wanted to focus on was them, because my mother could have advices from other people. Luckily, she has good connections in our town. She knows a lot of people, but so she managed to get a good advice. But imagine if someone is a foreigner who doesn't really speak the language, who doesn't really know how things work. Like, that person would just have their child's education rights violated. And that's it. And those who were supposed to protect them would just do nothing. So yeah, sorry for taking such a long time, but this is basically the situation that we discussed.
Thank you. No problem. So what you identified actually two levels, which was the person himself, the principal, but were the more global and systemic problem, which would be the lack of support by the social services. Is there any particular reason for that? Is it too many, not enough people working for too many children to accompany, for instance, or families to follow? Or was there any arguments explaining that there was this lack of accompaniment and support by the social services?
Honestly, I don't know, because I mean, honestly, I was like a little girl, so I wasn't really involved at the time. But what I can tell you from my own experience, and of course, it would be better to ask someone from the social services directly. But what I can tell you from my own experience is that they never really give justifications for anything. And there is definitely a problem with the lack of resources, but the bigger problem that I see is And again, this is just my experience, okay? So yeah, but what I see is that they're mostly bureaucrats. Like they do their paperwork and they don't really get involved with anything else. So I guess it is a problem of, on the one hand, educating staff to support vulnerable people better, particularly in this type of jobs. And also a problem of, I don't know, maybe selecting the best people, like the fittest people for the job. Because at the same time, I noticed that in NGOs, there's a lot of prepared people, empathetic people, motivated people who really want to help and really want to make a difference. So I'm like, why are people like this not in the system? Why are they not hired by the system? But yeah, this is a question that I really don't know the answer to.
Thank you. Is there reaction in direct rebound to what Francesca just mentioned? Is there questions? Do you have you want to take the floor?
Yes, if I might add something again, because Francesca and I, we were in the same group and we were discussing how this problem with the social services, it shows us how this is just not a country-specific problem, but it's something that exists in many different realities. I mean, of course, much respect to people who are actually involved, who actually care, and who are really, really there for the people that they are providing help to. But we do have a lot of people also who are just there to do administrative work, just to do the job without really being there for the people that they're helping. And it is a huge systematic problem that has to be addressed in the hiring, in the training, and in the control, follow-up evaluations to see how are these people doing, because these are the cases that should not happen, which we have just heard, but they are happening, and they are numerous, where in one way or another, the institution that you should count on, that you expect to provide support, they do not provide, and it's something that needs to be addressed. I mean, of course, from the institutions and people who could actually have impact on that type of a change, because we can try as individuals or as groups, but if we can't impact the change, it's something that will happen over and over again. So that's what I can add for this.
Thank you, Katerina. It's 5 to 2. I'll be lacking a few minutes. I'm a bit late on my schedule. So I will have to jump to the closing of this module, and thank you in any case for your contribution and your sharing of those situations linked to your personal experiences or professional experiences. Before we conclude, before we close this module, I was willing to give you some elements of conclusion, but I'll wrap it up a bit. I'm showing my screen again so that you can see it. So we talked a lot about inclusion, and through your testimonies, through your situations, and the reflection you had in those exchanges, you already gave a lot of elements and possible solutions or responses about a situation of inclusion. What can we do to have more inclusion? How can we achieve it? And what can we do to improve one's methods? I'll be a bit quick on that one, but what you mentioned was on one side, the question of the training of the people, and on the other side, something that's more linked to, let's say, the soft skills. When we want to develop inclusive environments, regardless of people's characteristic, there's of course no magic recipe or detailed instruction that we can follow. It's basically very linked to each situation. And what we can do is work on developing some necessary competencies to be more aware of diversity components and to be able to implement inclusion. So those competencies, we can understand them as combination of some knowledge, skills, and attitudes towards people and through our action. And some of these key competencies can be a bridge across the differences and across people, and can help taking into account diversity and and what is different, what is common, what is the core characteristics of someone, what is the diversity panel in a group, etc. So those skills that we can mention, this is not exhaustive list, but some key elements that we can mention is first the active listening, to focus on what others are saying and try to not to jump into conclusions, or not to try to go over the possible bias that we have, the stereotypes. To know that we have stereotypes, to recognize the fact that we have, to understand how our judgment of situations are shaped from many factors, and to try to overcome those biases. Critical thinking, to be able to question our assumptions and the information that is presented to us, and to go beyond that, to look at things from different perspectives. The empathy, of course, which would be the capacity to relate to the feelings, the needs, the experience of other people, and to take into account their perspective. Sorry, I don't see the whole screen. Open-mindedness, which would be the fact to be aware and to be open of other ideas, to consider ideas and opinions that are new to us or different to what we know from our own conceptions of things. The self-awareness, to be conscious and to understand our behaviors, our feelings, our needs, our aspiration, and also our strengths and weaknesses, to be more able to go towards the other, to know yourself better, and you will be able to know the others better as well. Solidarity, which would be trying to be more aware as well of one's own privilege, because people are disadvantageous, other people have privilege, and to be more aware of one's own situation and try to understand helps understanding how other people may struggles in life with their own condition. And tolerating ambiguity, which would be the fact that we know that we are all different. We know that sometimes we may have other opinions, contradictory perspectives, and that we may encounter situations where we face uncertainty, and it's okay. And we have to be flexible with that. We have to know that sometimes it just happens, and try to go with the flow. So basically, in the process of fostering more inclusion and equity, those soft skills are essentials. And there's also the importance of continuous training, as was mentioned during your exchanges, because we are talking about lifelong learning here. There's not something that we learn once and then we master. There are skills that we have to keep on developing at all times. And some crucial attitude that we have to have is that when we work with diversity, we have to remain humble and to understand that it's fine to not know everything and not know everything about every kind of identity or specific needs or situation. What's important is to recognize that we may make mistakes, we may lack knowledge, we may not know everything, but we have to listen, make it learning. And this is one good path to be able to foster more inclusivity. And the ability to rely on others, which is basically the importance of a team, and to be able to share problems, to cross analysis, and to develop complementarity of skills between different people. And this is a very important asset to implement diversity and inclusion. When you rely on different individuals, different people, you bring together different perspectives and backgrounds and competences, and it may help sometimes to better understand situations and to respond to specific needs among people. And I will close on that. So how can we ensure more inclusive space in learning environments? A few hints that we can give would be on the core logistic elements of the different aspects when you're welcoming a group on an event or in a learning environment. There's also the people, if people have specific needs, you have to be aware of that in advance. You have to ask in advance if there are specific needs that you should be aware of to try to adapt yourself to this. The venues, ideally, the venues have to be barrier-free and all spaces should be accessible to all people, including those with specific mobility needs. Gender, it's kind of important today, and even more today that we think think in terms of gender-neutral spaces, even for the bathroom, because it's of course not always possible, but ideally to be able to provide gender-neutral bathroom might be felt like more welcoming by people. And one core aspect that you mentioned is the language support, being able to consider the plurality of languages that might be represented among a group and the possible difficulty of understanding that participants may have, for instance, and to try to organize and adapt language support through signs, through personal accompaniment is something that is very important if you are welcoming publics and if you work in an organization or in a learning environment that may have different people from very different backgrounds. And food, consider food meals that everyone can eat, or try to propose various menus and propose alternatives so that everyone can find its own find its happiness, so to say. That was a bit rapid and a bit quick. I'm sorry about that. It's 2 o'clock and it's even 2:05, so we have to close here. I will close with just this one citation, this one quote. I'm not sure who was the original author of this quote. I read many different answers, but I think this quote is quite summing up the whole diversity and inclusion issue. Diversity is a fact, inclusion is an act, equity is a choice, belonging is an outcome. And I think this is very true because it's all about effort and choice and movement toward others when we try to implement more inclusivity. I will stop here for this last module, and I will have to thank you for your presence here, for your engagement in this module and in the previous ones. And I hope this will have been a bit useful for your work. All the documents will be available, of course, and will be shared by the colleagues from the Lifelong Learning platform. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry if not been that fluid as I would have wished, but I hope you enjoyed the exchanges that you had with other participants, and I hope that it would have been something that you can reuse or that you can get inspired of for your own work or in your own future projects. So thank you from my side, and sorry for being a bit over the schedule. Thank you for your availability, and maybe see you in a future training in the next module if you wish to attend them.